The boarding gate at Denver International Airport buzzed with the usual chaos of delayed flights and frustrated passengers. Among the crowd, 23-year-old Maya Rodriguez clutched her boarding pass with trembling fingers, her 6-month-old daughter Isabella sleeping peacefully against her chest in a worn baby carrier. The paper felt foreign in her hands. First class, seat 2A. It had to be a mistake. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Maya had never flown first class in her life. The ticket had been a gift from her late grandmother's estate lawyer, along with a cryptic note about settling affairs in Boston. She'd questioned it 3 times at check-in, certain there was an error, but the gate agent had simply smiled and printed her boarding passes with a cheerful, "Enjoy your flight, Miss Rodriguez." Now, as she approached the gleaming aircraft, doubt gnawed at her stomach. Her faded jeans and discount store sweater felt increasingly inadequate with each step down the jet bridge. Isabella stirred against her chest, tiny fingers grasping at the air as if sensing her mother's anxiety. The flight attendant's perfectly manicured smile faltered for just a moment as she scanned Maya's boarding pass. "First class is just through. Here," she said, her tone professionally neutral, but her eyes lingering on Maya's second-hand clothes and the diaper bag patched with duct tape. Maya stepped into the first-class cabin and her breath caught. The seats were more like personal suites, wide leather-wrapped cocoons with enough legroom for a basketball player. Soft, ambient lighting cast everything in a golden glow, and the air itself seemed cleaner, scented with something expensive and subtle. Seat 2A sat empty beside the window, but 2B was occupied by a man in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit. He was probably in his mid-30s, with dark hair perfectly styled and hands that had never known manual labor. His fingers moved across a tablet screen with practiced efficiency, and a Rolex caught the cabin light as he shifted position. Maya hesitated in the aisle, double-checking her boarding pass for the 3rd time. The man glanced up, and she found herself looking into steel-grey eyes that seemed to catalogue everything about her in a single sweep. She expected irritation, maybe disgust. She'd seen that look plenty of times before. Instead, something unreadable flickered across his features. "Excuse me," Maya whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of boarding passengers behind her. "I think I'm in 2A. The man's gaze dropped to Isabella, who had awakened and was now staring at him with those wide, dark eyes that seemed too knowing for such a small face. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then the man's tablet slipped from his fingers, clattering, onto the leather seat. "They're mine," he whispered, so quietly that Maya almost missed it. Maya blinked, certain she'd misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" But the man had already looked away, his jaw tight as he retrieved his tablet with hands that Maya now noticed were shaking slightly. "Nothing. Please, sit down." She settled into 2A with careful movements, hyper-aware of every sound Isabella might make. The seat was impossibly comfortable, like sinking into a cloud, but Maya couldn't relax. She fumbled with the seatbelt, trying to secure it around both herself and the baby carrier, while the man beside her radiated tension like heat from a furnace. "First time flying first class?" His voice was carefully modulated now, professional. Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak without her voice cracking. Isabella began to fuss, making those small mewling sounds that preceded a full crying fit. Maya bounced her gently, murmuring soft Spanish endearments her own mother had used. "She's beautiful," the man said suddenly. "What's her name?" "Isabella." Maya glanced at him sideways. Up close, she could see the expensive watch wasn't the only sign of wealth. His shirt was custom-tailored, his shoes handmade Italian leather. Everything about him screamed money and power. "She's 6 months old." Something passed over his face. Calculation, maybe, or recognition. 6 months, he repeated quietly. The flight attendant appeared with champagne flutes on a silver tray, offering them to first-class passengers. Maya started to decline, but the man, she still didn't know his name, accepted 2 glasses. "You look like you could use it," he said, offering her one. "I'm Marcus Chen, by the way. Marcus Chen Industries." Maya's hand froze halfway to the glass. Even she, buried in student debt and working 3 part-time jobs, had heard of Chen Industries. They owned half the tech companies in Silicon Valley and had their fingers in everything from renewable energy to space exploration. Marcus, Chen wasn't just wealthy, he was Forbes list, private jet by an island wealthy. "Maya Rodriguez," she managed, accepting the champagne with a hand that trembled slightly. I know who you are. Your company sponsored a scholarship program at my college." "What did you study?" "Computer science." "Well, I was studying it. I had to drop out when—" She glanced down at Isabella, who was now contentedly chewing on her own fist. Marcus nodded slowly. "When did you find out you were pregnant?" The question was too personal, too direct, but something in his tone made Maya answer honestly. "About a year ago. March 15th, to be exact. I remember because it was the day I got accepted into the Advanced Algorithms program." Marcus went very still. Maya noticed his knuckles were white where he gripped his champagne flute. "The father?" he asked quietly. Maya's laugh was bitter. "Gone before I even knew I was pregnant. Some tech conference in San Francisco. He gave me a fake name, fake number. I was stupid enough to think it meant something." The plane began to taxi, and Maya focused on keeping Isabella calm during takeoff. She'd read that the pressure changes could hurt babies' ears, so she'd brought a bottle for the ascent. As the aircraft lifted off, Isabella sucked contentedly, her dark eyes never leaving Marcus's face. "She looks like someone I know," Marcus said once they'd reached cruising altitude. Maya followed his gaze. Isabella did have distinctive features. The strong jawline, the particular shade of dark eyes, the way her eyebrows arched just so. "People always say babies look like everyone and no one at the same time." "Not everyone." Marcus's voice was strained. "Maya, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. That conference in San Francisco, do you remember which hotel?" Maya's blood chilled. "Why would you ask that?" "Please, just answer." The Marriott downtown. There was some kind of tech expo. Why does it matter?" Marcus closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, Maya saw something that looked like grief. "Because I was there. March 16th through 18th. Chen Industries was the primary sponsor." The champagne glass slipped from Maya's fingers, splashing expensive alcohol across her jeans. The flight attendant appeared instantly with towels and apologies, but Maya barely noticed. Her mind was racing, trying to remember details from that night she'd tried so hard to forget. The hotel, bar, expensive suit, charming smile. He'd said his name was Michael. They talked about artificial intelligence and the future of quantum computing. He'd seemed genuinely interested in her ideas, not just trying to get her into bed. She'd felt sophisticated. "Important scene." "Michael," she whispered. Marcus winced. "My middle name. I use it sometimes when I want privacy." Maya stared at him, this powerful man who apparently owned half the world, and tried to reconcile him with her memory of that night. The same steel-grey eyes, yes, the same aristocratic cheekbones. But Michael had been warm, funny, almost vulnerable when he talked about the pressure of living up to his family's expectations. "You lied to me." "I lie to everyone," Marcus said quietly. "It's safer that way." "But Maya, if Isabella is—" "Don't." Maya's voice was sharp enough to cut glass. "Don't you dare, you walked away. You left me with nothing but a fake name and a broken heart. I raised her alone. Worked 3 jobs while pregnant. Dropped out of school because I couldn't afford childcare. You don't get to claim her now. I didn't know. Marcus's composure was cracking, revealing something raw underneath. If I had known, you would have what? Sent a check? Had your lawyers draw up a non-disclosure agreement? Isabella began to cry, picking up on her mother's distress. Maya unbuckled herself and stood, swaying slightly as the plane hit turbulence. She needed space, air, anything to escape the suffocating weight of this revelation. "Miss, you need to remain seated," the flight attendant said, appearing with perfect timing and a concerned expression. "I just need the bathroom." Maya stumbled toward the first-class lavatory, Isabella's cries growing louder. Inside the cramped space, she stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her face was pale, her eyes wild. Isabella's face was red with fury, tiny fists waving as she screamed. "Shh, Mija," Maya whispered, bouncing her gently. "It's okay, we're okay. We've always been okay without him." But even as she said it, she couldn't stop staring at Isabella's face, seeing features she'd attributed to her own father or some random genetic lottery. The strong chin that came from neither side of her family, the particular shade of her eyes that Maya had always thought unique. A soft knock on the door interrupted her spiraling thoughts. "Maya?" Marcus's voice was muffled through the door. "Please, we need to talk. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story." "There's nothing to talk about. There's everything to talk about. Please. I know you. Have no reason to trust me, but she's my daughter too." Maya closed her eyes, feeling the walls of her carefully constructed life crumbling around her. She'd worked so hard to build something stable for Isabella, to prove she could do it alone. Now this man, this billionaire who could buy and sell her entire world without thinking about it, was claiming a piece of the only thing that had ever truly belonged to her. Isabella's cries were subsiding into hiccuping sobs. Maya looked down at her daughter's face, searching for answers in those dark eyes that were indeed so much like Marcus's. "5 minutes," she called through the door. "Then I don't want to hear another word about it for the rest of the flight." When she emerged, Marcus was waiting in the aisle, his perfect composure completely shattered. His hair was disheveled as if he'd been running his hands through it, and his tie was loosened. For the first time, he looked human. They returned to their seats in silence. Isabella had fallen asleep, exhausted by her crying fit, and Maya was grateful for the quiet. She needed time to think, to process, to figure out how this changed everything, or if it changed anything at all. "I want a paternity test," she said finally. Marcus nodded. "Of course, whatever you need. And I want to know why you used a fake name. The real reason." Marcus was quiet for so long that Maya thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Because Marcus Chen can't have a normal conversation with anyone. Every word is calculated for stock prices or board, meetings or merger deals. Michael was just a guy having a drink with a brilliant woman who wanted to change the world." He paused. "Michael was who I wanted to be." Maya felt something crack inside her chest. "And now? Now I'm a man who just found out he has a daughter, and I have no idea what that means, or how to be what she needs." The honesty in his voice caught her off guard. She'd expected arrogance, demands, legal threats. Instead, she found a man who looked as lost and terrified as she felt. Isabella stirred in her sleep, making soft baby sounds. Without thinking, Marcus reached out to touch her tiny hand, then stopped himself. "May I?" Maya hesitated, then nodded. Marcus's finger brushed against Isabella's palm, and her tiny fist closed around it instinctively. The expression on his face was one Maya had never seen before. Wonder, terror, and something that might have been love all mixed together. "She's perfect," he whispered. Yes, she is. Maya's voice was fierce with protective pride. And she's been perfect for 6 months without you. Marcus met her eyes. I know, and I know I have no right to ask for anything, but Maya, please, let me try to make this right. Outside the airplane window, clouds stretched endlessly in all directions, hiding the ground below. Maya felt suspended between two worlds. The one where she was a struggling single mother fighting for every opportunity, and another she couldn't even imagine, where her daughter's father was one of the most powerful men in America. I don't even know what that would look like, she admitted. Neither do I, Marcus said, but I'd like to find out, if you'll let me. The flight attendant announced they were beginning their descent into Boston. Maya looked down at Isabella, still sleeping peacefully with her tiny fist wrapped around Marcus's finger, and wondered if landing would mean the beginning of something new or the end of the only life she'd ever known how to live. The descent into Logan International felt like falling through layers of reality. Maya watched the city sprawl beneath them, a maze of brick buildings and harbor waters that would either trap her or set her free. Marcus hadn't spoken since their conversation, but his presence beside her hummed with barely contained energy. Isabella woke as the landing gear engaged, her face scrunching with discomfort from the pressure change. Maya quickly offered her the bottle, but Isabella turned her head away, beginning to fuss. Without hesitation, Marcus reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone, activating a gentle piano melody. Classical music soothes her, he said, noticing Maya's surprised expression. My sister Rachel has twins. I learned a few tricks during babysitting emergencies. The music worked. Isabella's crying subsided as she stared at the phone screen, mesmerized by the soft colors that pulsed with each note. Maya felt another piece of her carefully constructed narrative crumble. The absent father who wouldn't know the first thing about caring for a child. You have a sister. 3 siblings. Rachel's the youngest. She's a pediatric nurse in Seattle. Then there's David. He runs our renewable energy division. And Jennifer manages our philanthropic foundation. Marcus's voice carried genuine warmth when he spoke about his family. They're going to want to meet Isabella. The weight of that statement settled over Maya like lead. This wasn't just about Marcus anymore. There was an entire family she'd never considered, aunts and uncles Isabella had never known existed. One step at a time, she said firmly. The plane touched down with barely a bump, testament to the pilot's skill. As they taxied toward the gate, Marcus turned to face her fully. Maya, I know this is overwhelming. I want you to know that I've already instructed my assistant to cancel my meetings for the rest of the week. Whatever you need, hotel, meals, a car, it's taken care of, no strings attached. Maya's pride flared. I can take care of myself. I've been doing it for 6 months. I know you can, but you shouldn't have to. His voice was gentle but determined. Please, let me help. The other first-class passengers were already standing, gathering their belongings with the practiced efficiency of frequent travelers. Maya remained seated, paralyzed by the magnitude of what waited beyond the aircraft door. In Denver, she'd been Maya Rodriguez, struggling but independent. What would she be in Boston? The hotel reservation you mentioned, Marcus said carefully. What's the address? Maya pulled out her phone, scrolling through emails until she found the confirmation. The Parker House Hotel. I'm supposed to meet with Harrison Whitfield tomorrow morning. He was my grandmother's lawyer. Marcus went very still. Harrison Whitfield? You know him? He's one of the most prominent estate attorneys on the East Coast. Maya, what exactly did your grandmother leave you? Before Maya could answer, the flight attendant appeared with a warm smile. Mr. Chen, your car is waiting at gate B7. Would you like assistance with your luggage? Thank you, but we'll manage. Marcus stood, pulling down a leather briefcase from the overhead compartment. Maya, may I walk with you to baggage claim? Maya nodded, still processing his reaction to the lawyer's name. She gathered her few belongings. The patched diaper bag, her backpack containing everything she owned that mattered, and followed Marcus off the plane. Logan Airport bustled with typical evening chaos, but Maya barely noticed. Her attention was focused on Marcus, who seemed to glide through the crowds while simultaneously managing 3 phone calls and sending rapid-fire text messages. Power radiated from him like heat, and she watched other travelers unconsciously step aside to let him pass. Maya. He ended his final call and pocketed his phone. I need to ask you something else about your grandmother. Did she ever mention the name? Elena Rodriguez? Maya stopped walking so abruptly that a businessman nearly collided with her. That was my grandmother's name, Elena Rodriguez. How do you... She worked for my family. 25 years ago, she was our housekeeper. Marcus's voice was tight, with something Maya couldn't identify. She left suddenly when I was 12. My parents never explained why. The baggage carousel hummed to life, but Maya didn't move toward it. Her mind was reeling, trying to connect dots that seemed impossible to link. My grandmother never mentioned working for any wealthy families. She cleaned office buildings downtown, worked nights so she could take care of me during the day after. My parents died. Maya's voice grew stronger as she spoke. She was the most honest person I ever knew. If she left your family suddenly, she had a good reason. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, destroying its perfect styling. Maya, I think there's more to this than either of us understands. Your grandmother leaving you first-class tickets to Boston, the meeting with Whitfield. It's not a coincidence. What are you saying? I'm saying someone planned this. The question is who and why. A town car with tinted windows waited at the curb outside baggage claim, its driver standing at attention beside the open rear door. Maya hesitated before getting in, acutely aware that accepting this ride would cross another line she couldn't uncross. Isabella had fallen asleep again, exhausted by the day's revelations. Maya settled her carefully in the car seat Marcus's driver had somehow procured, then slid across leather seats that probably cost more than her monthly rent. The Parker House, Marcus instructed the driver, then raised the partition between front and back seats. Maya, I want you to know that whatever happens tomorrow, whatever you learn from Whitfield, I meant what I said on the plane. I want to be part of Isabella's life, but I also want to be part of yours. Maya turned to stare at him. What does that mean? It means I haven't stopped thinking about that night in San Francisco. Not once in the past year. You weren't just some random encounter. You were the most interesting person I'd met in years. When I gave you that fake name, I told myself it was for privacy, but really it was because I was a coward. A coward? I was afraid that if you knew who I really was, you'd want me for the wrong reasons. Money, status, access to a world you couldn't reach on your own. Marcus's laugh was bitter. Instead, I ensured you'd want nothing to do with me at all. Boston's historic streets flowed past the windows, brick buildings and narrow alleys that had witnessed centuries of secrets. Maya felt caught between past and future, between the grandmother who'd raised her and the man who claimed to want a second chance. Why computer science? Marcus asked suddenly. Because code doesn't lie. You write a program, it does exactly what you tell it to do. No hidden agendas, no false promises. Maya adjusted Isabella's blanket with gentle fingers. People are messier. They are. Marcus watched her hands as she tended to their daughter. But sometimes the mess is worth it. The Parker House Hotel rose before them like something from another era, all dark wood and brass fixtures. The doorman recognized the car and stepped forward immediately, but Maya waved him away as she gathered Isabella and her bags. I can manage. I know you can. Marcus made no move to take her belongings. But you don't have to prove anything to me. Inside the hotel lobby, crystal chandeliers cast warm light over marble floors and oil paintings of long-dead Boston luminaries. Maya approached the front desk with Isabella in her arms, very aware of how out of place she looked among the well-dressed guests. "Reservation for Rodriguez," she told the desk clerk. The woman's fingers flew over her keyboard, then paused. "I'm sorry, but I'm showing that the reservation was upgraded to the presidential suite, with all charges covered by the Elena Rodriguez estate." Maya's knees nearly buckled. "That's impossible. My grandmother didn't have that kind of money." Marcus stepped forward, his voice gentle but firm. "Maya, I think your grandmother had more secrets than either of us realized, and I think we're going to find out what they were tomorrow morning." The elevator ride to the 23rd floor passed in silence. Isabella slept peacefully, unaware that her world was shifting with each passing hour. When the doors opened to reveal a suite larger than Maya's entire apartment, she couldn't suppress a sharp intake of breath. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Boston Harbor. The living room alone could have housed 3 families, furnished with antiques that belonged in museums. A kitchen stocked with expensive groceries connected to a dining room with seating for 12. Maya. Marcus touched her shoulder gently. "Are you all right?" She turned to face him, this man who'd upended her life twice now, and realized she was crying. "I don't understand any of this. My grandmother worked 3 jobs to put food on the table. She darned socks because buying new ones was too expensive. How does a woman like that leave behind hotel suites and first-class tickets and meetings with prestigious lawyers?" Marcus pulled her into his arms before she could protest, and Maya found herself leaning into his strength. Isabella stirred between them, a warm reminder of what connected them beyond confusion and old pain. "Whatever we find out tomorrow," Marcus said quietly, "we'll face it together, all 3 of us." Maya pulled back to look at him. "Why? You don't owe me anything. You didn't even know Isabella existed until today." "Because that night in San Francisco, for the first time in my adult life, I met someone who saw me instead of my bank account. And because when I look at Isabella, I see a future I never thought I wanted, but now can't imagine living without." His thumb brushed away a tear from Maya's cheek. "Because maybe your grandmother knew exactly what she was doing when she put you in seat 2A. Outside the suite's windows, Boston Harbor glittered with reflected lights, holding secrets as deep as the water itself. Maya looked from the man who'd fathered her child to the sleeping baby who'd changed everything, and wondered if some puzzles were meant to bring people together rather than drive them apart. Maya woke to sunlight streaming through silk curtains, and the sound of Isabella's content babbling. For a moment she forgot where she was. The bed was too soft, the room too quiet, the view too spectacular. Then reality crashed back. Boston, Marcus, and a meeting that might change everything. Isabella lay in the portable crib that had mysteriously appeared overnight, reaching for sunbeams dancing across the ceiling. Maya lifted her daughter, breathing in that sweet baby scent that had become her anchor through every storm. "Good morning, beautiful girl," she whispered. "Ready to solve some mysteries?" A soft knock interrupted the moment. Maya wrapped herself in the hotel's plush robe before opening the door to find Marcus standing in the hallway with coffee and pastries from what looked like Boston's most expensive bakery. "I thought you might need breakfast," he said, then paused at seeing her disheveled appearance. "You look like I slept in a strange bed after the most confusing day of my life." "Beautiful," he finished quietly. Heat crept up Maya's neck. She stepped aside to let him enter, hyper-aware of his presence in the intimate space of the suite's sitting area. Marcus had traded yesterday's formal suit for dark jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than her car payment, but somehow he looked more approachable. "You didn't have to bring breakfast. Isabella needs you strong for whatever." "We're about to learn." Marcus set the food on the dining table, then reached for their daughter. "May I?" Maya handed over Isabella, watching as Marcus held her with surprising confidence. Isabella gurgled happily, grabbing at his sweater with sticky fingers. "Natural," Maya observed. "Rachel made me practice with her twins until I could change a diaper blindfolded." Marcus grinned at Isabella's delighted squeals. She said any uncle worth his salt needed essential baby skills. The easy domesticity of the scene caught Maya off guard. She'd spent so many nights imagining what it would be like to have help, to share the responsibility and joy of raising Isabella. She'd never pictured it looking like this. Expensive hotel suite, billionaire baby daddy, and mysteries wrapped in decades of secrets. Marcus about yesterday. Maya poured coffee from the elegant silver service. "When you said my grandmother left your family suddenly, what exactly happened?" Marcus's expression grew serious. "I was 12, so I only knew pieces. Elena had been with us for about 3 years. She wasn't just our housekeeper. She was like family. She helped with homework, bandaged scraped knees, and listened to my teenage problems." He bounced Isabella gently. "Then one morning, she was gone. No notice, no goodbye. My parents claimed she'd found a better opportunity, but even at 12, I knew something was wrong. Wrong how? My mother cried for weeks, and my father, he started working longer hours, avoiding family dinners. There were hushed phone conversations that stopped when us kids entered the room." Marcus met Maya's eyes. "Elena wasn't just our housekeeper, Maya. She was my mother's best friend." Maya's coffee cup rattled against its saucer as she set it down. "My grandmother never mentioned any of this. She talked about her cleaning jobs like they were just work, necessary but temporary. Maybe she had reasons for keeping quiet." At 9:30, they made their way through Boston's financial district toward Whitfield's law office. Marcus had insisted on driving, navigating the narrow streets with the ease of someone familiar with the city. Isabella sat contentedly in her car seat, watching the historic buildings flow past. There, Marcus pointed to a brownstone building with brass nameplate gleaming in the morning sun. "Whitfield, Blackstone and Associates. They handle some of the oldest money in New England." The law office interior spoke of centuries of wealth and discretion, leather-bound books, Persian rugs, and the kind of quiet that money bought. A receptionist, with silver hair and kind eyes, greeted them warmly. "Miss Rodriguez, Mr. Whitfield is expecting you, and you must be Isabella." She smiled at the baby. "She has her great-grandmother's eyes." Maya froze. "You knew my grandmother? Eleanor was a remarkable woman. Please follow me." Harrison Whitfield's office occupied the building's entire top floor, with windows overlooking Boston Common. The man himself was perhaps 70, with white hair and sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. He rose from behind a mahogany desk that looked older than the building itself. "Maya Rodriguez." His voice carried traces of a Boston Brahmin accent. "You look exactly like Elena did at your age. Please sit." Maya settled into a leather chair, Isabella on her lap, while Marcus took the seat beside her. Whitfield's gaze lingered on Marcus with what might have been recognition. "Mr. Chen, I wasn't expecting you." "Life is full of surprises," Marcus replied evenly. Whitfield opened a thick folder, revealing documents that looked decades old. "Indeed it is. Maya, your grandmother left very specific instructions about this meeting. I'm to tell you everything, but only if you're accompanied by someone you trust completely." Maya glanced at Marcus, then back at the lawyer. "I trust him." "Very well." Whitfield pulled out a photograph, a young woman in a maid's uniform standing beside an elegant blonde woman in pearls. "This is your grandmother, aged 25, and Catherine Chen, Marcus's mother." The room went silent except for Isabella's soft breathing. Maya stared at the photograph, recognizing her grandmother's face, but not the expensive clothes or confident posture. "They weren't just employers and employees," Whitfield continued. "They were best friends who happened to be born into very different circumstances. Catherine Chen was old Boston money, but Elena Rodriguez was old Boston royalty in disguise. "That's impossible," Maya whispered. Whitfield smiled. "Your great-great-grandfather was Fernando Rodriguez, who made his fortune in shipping during the 1800s. The family owned half the warehouses in Boston Harbor, 3 textile mills, and a small railroad company." He slid another document across the desk. Elena was the last surviving heir. Maya's hands shook as she read the legal papers. Names, dates, properties, all leading to her grandmother, who'd scrubbed floors while sitting on millions of dollars. Why? The word came out as barely a breath. "Because she fell in love with your grandfather, Miguel Rodriguez, a man her family deemed unsuitable due to his recent immigration status and working-class background. When she chose love over money, they disowned her." Whitfield's expression softened. Elena spent 30 years working service jobs, determined to prove she could build a life on her own terms. Marcus leaned forward. "But why did she leave our family?" "Because Catherine Chen discovered Eleanor's true identity and wanted to restore her inheritance. Eleanor refused. She'd made her choice and intended to live with it." The friendship ended over Catherine's insistence that Elena was throwing away her daughter's future. Whitfield looked directly at Maya. "Your mother's future, and eventually yours." Maya felt the room spinning. "My grandmother was rich this entire time?" "Your grandmother was proud. She invested wisely over the years, living modestly while building a substantial portfolio. When she learned about Isabella—" Whitfield paused. "She knew it was time to give you the choice she'd never had." "How did she know about Isabella?" Marcus and Maya looked at each other, the same question in both their eyes. Whitfield pulled out a final document, a private investigator's report. Elena kept tabs on the Chen family after she left. When Marcus began making headlines in the tech world, she followed his career. She knew about the San Francisco conference, Maya. She knew you'd be there. The pieces clicked together with devastating clarity. Maya's scholarship to the Advanced Algorithms program, the tech conference invitation she'd thought was random selection. The hotel room upgrade that put her in the same bar where Marcus was drinking alone. She orchestrated everything, Maya breathed. "She gave you an opportunity," Whitfield corrected gently. "What you did with it was your choice, just as what you do with your inheritance is your choice now." He handed Maya a final envelope, thick with documents. $27 million, plus property holdings throughout New England. Elena's letter explains everything, including why she waited until now to give you what was always yours. Maya stared at the envelope, her entire world reshaping around this impossible truth. Isabella reached for the papers with tiny fingers, as if she understood their significance. "There's one more thing," Whitfield said quietly. "Elena left instructions for Marcus as well." He handed Marcus a smaller envelope marked with elegant handwriting. "For the father of my great-granddaughter, with hopes for forgiveness and new beginnings." Marcus opened it with trembling fingers, reading silently. When he looked up, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. "What does it say?" Maya asked. "It says she's sorry for the pain between our families and that she hopes we can build something better for Isabella than the pride and stubbornness that kept us apart." His voice cracked slightly. "She says love is worth more than money, but money can protect love if we're wise enough to let it." Outside Whitfield's windows, Boston Harbor sparkled in the afternoon sun, holding secrets that had finally been revealed. Maya looked from the inheritance documents to Marcus to their daughter, understanding at last that her grandmother's greatest gift wasn't the money, it was the second chance she'd orchestrated for all of them. The ride back to the hotel passed in stunned silence. Maya clutched the inheritance documents like they might vanish if she loosened her grip, while Marcus stared out the window with an expression she couldn't read. Isabella dozed peacefully, unaware that she'd just become one of the wealthiest babies in Massachusetts. $27 million, Maya whispered, testing how the words felt in her mouth. They tasted foreign, impossible. It changes things, Marcus said quietly. Does it? Maya turned to face him. Yesterday I was a poor single mother. Today I'm... What? Still a single mother, just with a bank account I never asked for? Marcus pulled the car into the hotel's circular drive, but made no move to get out. Maya, I need you to understand something. When I thought you had nothing, I wanted to take care of you and Isabella. Now that you have everything, I still want to take care of you. That hasn't changed. But I have changed. Maya looked down at the legal papers in her lap. This morning, I was worried about making rent next month. Now I could buy the entire apartment building. Money doesn't change who you are at your core, doesn't it? Maya's laugh held no humor. You said to yourself that you use a fake name because people want you for the wrong reasons. Now I'm one of those people everyone will want something from. Before Marcus could respond, Maya's phone buzzed with an unknown Boston number. She answered hesitantly. Maya Rodriguez? Yes? This is Jennifer Chen, Marcus's sister. I understand you're in Boston, and I think we need to talk. Maya's eyes flew to Marcus, who had gone rigid beside her. Agia, how did you get this number? Family Resources. I'm at the Prudential Center, 20th floor. Can you meet me in 1 hour? Alone. The line went dead before Maya could respond. Marcus was already reaching for his own phone. Jennifer, what the hell? His face darkened as he listened. No, absolutely not. Maya doesn't need to prove anything to you. A pause. Fine, but I'm coming with her. He ended the call and turned to Maya with an apologetic expression. My sister wants to meet you. She's protective of the family. Meaning she thinks I'm a gold digger who trapped you with a baby. Meaning she's a corporate lawyer who sees threats everywhere and doesn't know when to mind her own business. An hour later, they stood outside the Chen Industries Boston office, Isabella bundled against the autumn chill. The building soared into the sky like a glass and steel monument to Marcus's success, and Maya felt every inch the imposter. The 20th floor reception area screamed expensive minimalism, white marble, abstract art, and furniture that probably cost more than Maya's former annual salary. A woman approached them with the predatory grace of someone accustomed to getting her way. Jennifer Chen shared Marcus's dark hair and steel-grey eyes, but where his face showed warmth, hers remained coldly professional. She wore a tailored suit that could have paid Maya's college tuition and moved with the confidence of someone who'd never doubted her place in the world. Marcus! She kissed her brother's cheek without taking her eyes off Maya. And you must be Maya Rodriguez, or should I say, Maya Rodriguez Whitman. Maya blinked. I don't know what you mean. Whitman. Your grandmother's maiden name before she married your grandfather, Elena Rodriguez Whitman, heir to the Whitman shipping fortune. Jennifer's smile was razor-sharp. Did you really think we wouldn't investigate once Marcus called to cancel his week? Jennifer! Marcus's voice carried a warning. It's fine, Maya said, stepping forward. What exactly do you want to know? Jennifer gestured toward a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Boston Harbor. I want to know how a woman who supposedly learned about my brother's identity yesterday managed to orchestrate a meeting that's been planned for months. Maya followed her into the conference room, Marcus close behind. Isabella stirred in her carrier, making soft sounds that echoed in the sterile space. I didn't orchestrate anything. Really? Jennifer opened a tablet, scrolling through what looked like financial records. Because according to my research, Elena Rodriguez has been moving significant assets for the past year. Private investigators, travel arrangements, strategic stock purchases in Chen Industries. She looked up with calculating eyes. Your grandmother bought 2% of our company 6 months ago. The room fell silent, except for the hum of climate control and Isabella's gentle breathing. Maya felt like she was drowning in information she couldn't process. She bought stock in Marcus's company. She bought voting shares, Maya. Enough to have a voice in major decisions. Jennifer leaned back in her chair. So forgive me if I find it's suspicious that her granddaughter happens to seduce my brother at exactly the right moment to produce an heir who could one day claim those shares. That's enough. Marcus's voice cut through the room like ice. Maya didn't even know Elena had money until this morning. So she says. Jennifer's gaze never left Maya's face. But consider the timeline. Elena purchases Chen Industries stock. In February, Maya attends a tech conference in March where she conveniently meets Marcus. She gets pregnant with his child but doesn't contact him for support, which seems odd for someone supposedly struggling financially. Then Elena dies, leaving Maya a fortune and first-class tickets to Boston, where she just happens to sit next. To Marcus again, Maya's head spun with the implications. You think I planned this? All of it? I think the Rodriguez women are very good at long-term strategy. Isabella chose that moment to wake up fully, her cries piercing the tension in the room. Maya lifted her from the carrier, bouncing her gently while her mind raced. You want to know the truth? Maya's voice was steady despite the storm inside her. The truth is that I worked 3 jobs while pregnant because I was too proud to ask for help from a man who gave me a fake name. The truth is that I've been terrified every single day that I'm not good enough to be Isabella's mother. The truth is that I didn't know my grandmother had a dime to her name until 2 hours ago. She moved to the window, looking out over the harbor where her great-great-grandfather had once built his empire. But you know what else is true? Elena Rodriguez Whitman was brilliant, and if she spent a year planning to give her great-granddaughter a better life, then I'm grateful for every manipulation, every orchestrated coincidence, every strategic stock purchase. Maya turned back to face Jennifer, Isabella quiet in her arms, because the only thing that matters now is that Isabella has 2 parents who love her and the resources to give her every opportunity. If you have a problem with that, take it up with a dead woman who outsmarted all of us. Jennifer's cold composure cracked slightly. You're not what I expected. Neither was your brother, apparently. Marcus stepped forward, placing a protective hand on Maya's shoulder. Jennifer, you've made your point. Maya doesn't owe you explanations or proof of her intentions. Actually, she does. Jennifer pulled out another document. Because Elena Rodriguez Whitman's will contains a very interesting clause. Her Chen Industries shares don't transfer to Maya immediately. They go into a trust fund for Isabella with very specific conditions about how they can be accessed. Maya's stomach dropped. What kind of conditions? The shares can only be claimed if Isabella's parents are married and living together as a family unit for a minimum of 2 years. Jennifer's smile returned, sharper than before. Elena's final manipulation. She's forcing you to choose between love and money, just like she had to choose between your grandfather and her inheritance. The conference room fell silent, except for the distant sounds of traffic far below. Maya looked from Jennifer to Marcus, understanding that her grandmother's game was far from over. She's still pulling strings from the grave, Maya whispered. The question is, Jennifer said, closing her tablet with a decisive snap, what are you going to do about it? Outside the windows, Boston Harbor stretched toward the horizon, holding secrets that seemed to multiply with each revelation. Maya realized that inheriting Elena's fortune was only the beginning. The real challenge was deciding whether to play by her grandmother's rules or write new ones entirely. The silence in Marcus's penthouse apartment was deafening. After leaving Jennifer's office, they'd driven here without speaking, both lost in the implications of Elena's final chess move. The space reflected Marcus's wealth, floor-to-ceiling windows, modern art, furniture that belonged in magazines, but felt surprisingly warm and lived in. Maya stood by the window overlooking Boston Common, Isabella sleeping peacefully in. Her arms. The irony wasn't lost on her. She was now wealthy enough to afford a dozen places like this, yet she'd never felt more uncertain about her future. She planned everything, Maya said finally, even this conversation. Marcus loosened his tie, the first crack in his composed facade since leaving the office. Eleanor always was 10 steps ahead of everyone else. My mother used to joke that Elena could predict the weather better than meteorologists. This isn't weather, Marcus. This is our lives. Maya turned to face him. She's trying to force us into marriage for Isabella's financial security. Is that such a terrible thing? The question hung between them like a challenge. Maya studied his face, searching for any sign that he was joking. You can't be serious. Marcus sat heavily on his leather couch, running both hands through his hair. Maya, I've been thinking about this since we left Jennifer's office. Maybe Elena saw something we're too stubborn to admit. That we should get married for money? That's exactly what your sister thinks I want. No. Marcus stood, crossing to where she stood by the window. That we're good together. That Isabella deserves parents who care about each other, not just shared custody schedules and lawyers. Maya's breath caught as he stepped closer. This near, she could smell his cologne, see the flecks of gold in his grey eyes. It would be so easy to lean into him, to let someone else carry the weight of decisions for once. Marcus, we barely know each other. I know you take your coffee black because you can't afford cream, but tell people you prefer it that way. I know you hum Spanish lullabies when you think no one's listening. I know you're brilliant enough to have earned a full scholarship to MIT, but selfless enough to give it up for Isabella. Heat crept up Maya's neck. How do you know about MIT? Because I called them yesterday. You were accepted into their graduate program for artificial intelligence research. Full funding, research assistant position, faculty mentor, who specifically requested you. Marcus's voice grew gentle. You gave up your dreams for our daughter. Maya's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. Isabella is my dream now. She could be both our dreams. Before Maya could respond, her phone rang. The caller ID showed her best friend Carmen's number, and Maya answered gratefully for the interruption. Maya, thank God, I've been calling all day. Are you okay? Some guy in an expensive suit came by your apartment, asking questions about you and Isabella. Maya's blood chilled. What kind of questions? About Isabella's father, about your family history, about whether you'd mentioned any wealthy connections. Carmen's voice dropped to a whisper. Maya, who is Isabella's dad? Because this guy knew things about your grandmother that I'm pretty sure you don't even know. Marcus was watching her with sharp attention. Maya put the phone on speaker. Carmen, describe the man. Tall, maybe 40, blonde hair, expensive watch. He had this way of talking like he owned the world, you know? Left his card. David Chen, Chen Industries Environmental Division. Marcus cursed under his breath. My brother. Your brother is investigating me. My family doesn't take chances with Chen Industries assets. Marcus's jaw was tight with anger. If Isabella could inherit voting shares, David wants to know everything about her mother's background. Maya ended the call and handed Isabella to Marcus, her hands shaking with fury. This is what our life would be like. Your family treating me like a threat to be neutralized. Maya, let me handle David. No. Maya's voice was steel. I'm not going to be handled, managed, or investigated. I'm not some gold digger your family needs to contain. She moved toward the door, but Marcus stepped into her path. Where are you going? Back to Denver. Back to my real life, where people don't hire private investigators to validate my character. What about Isabella? Maya paused with her hand on the doorknob. This was the question she'd been dreading, the one that cut to the heart of everything. You can visit her. We'll work out custody arrangements through lawyers like civilized adults. She met his eyes. But I won't marry you for money, Marcus, not even Elena's money. And if I asked you to marry me for love? The question stopped her cold. Marcus stepped closer, his expression vulnerable in a way she'd never seen before. Maya, forget the inheritance. Forget Elena's conditions, and Jennifer's suspicions, and David's investigations. If I asked you to marry me, because I can't imagine my life without you in it, what would you say? Maya's heart pounded so hard she was sure he could hear it. I'd say you're moving too fast. We met again yesterday, Marcus. Yesterday. But I've been thinking about you for a year. Every woman I've met since San Francisco, I've compared to you. Every conversation I've had has felt shallow because none of them challenged me the way you did in one evening. That was one night. It was the best night of my life. Marcus reached out to touch her face, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone. And yesterday, watching you with Isabella, seeing how fierce and protective and loving you are, Maya, I don't want custody arrangements and lawyer meetings. I want family dinners and bedtime stories and arguments about whose turn it is to change diapers. Maya closed her eyes, leaning into his touch, despite every rational thought telling her to. Run! And if it doesn't work, if we're terrible together as anything more than Isabella's parents, then we'll figure it out. But Maya, what if we're not terrible? What if Elena saw something we're too scared to try? A soft knock interrupted them. Marcus frowned and checked the security monitor by his door. It's my mother. Maya's eyes flew open. Catherine Chen, here? She must have heard about you from Jennifer. Marcus looked apologetic. My family doesn't believe in giving people space to process. The knock came again, more insistent this time. Let her in, Maya said suddenly. Maya, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Maya straightened her shoulders, decision crystallizing in her mind. If your family wants to judge me, they can do it to my face. I'm tired of being talked about like I'm not. In the room, Marcus opened the door to reveal an elegant woman in her 60s with silver hair and the same steel-grey eyes that marked all the Chen children. Catherine Chen wore pearls and a Chanel suit, but her expression was softer than Maya had expected. Marcus. She kissed her son's cheek, then turned to Maya with measuring eyes. You must be Maya Rodriguez. I knew your grandmother. So I've heard. Catherine's gaze moved to Isabella, who was now awake and staring at this new stranger with curious eyes. Something shifted in the older woman's expression, surprise, recognition, and something that might have been grief. She has Elena's eyes, Catherine whispered. And her stubborn chin. She has her father's eyes, Maya corrected firmly. Catherine. Chen smiled for the first time since entering the apartment. Yes, she does, but the stubborn chin definitely comes from the Rodriguez women. She paused, studying Maya with new interest. Elena wrote me a letter before she died. She said she was giving you a choice she never got to make. What choice? Whether to choose love or money. She chose love and spent 30 years regretting it. But she also said she hoped you'd be brave enough to choose both. Catherine moved closer to Isabella, who reached out tiny fingers toward the pearls at her neck. Elena was my dearest friend for 3 years. When I discovered who she really was, I tried to convince her to reclaim her inheritance. I thought I was helping, but I was really trying to ease my own guilt about how unequally life had treated us. Catherine's voice grew soft. She left because she knew our friendship couldn't survive my attempts to fix her life. Maya felt pieces of the puzzle shifting into place. She didn't want charity. She wanted to be valued for who she was, not what she'd given up. Catherine looked directly at Maya. Just like you do. Outside the windows, afternoon light painted Boston in shades of gold and amber. Maya looked from Catherine to Marcus to Isabella. understanding that this moment would define everything that came after. "Mrs. Chen," Maya said carefully, "what exactly did Eleanor's letter say about me?" Catherine smiled, and for the first time, Maya saw warmth instead of calculation in those steel-grey eyes. "She said you were the granddaughter who would finally get it right." Catherine Chen's words hung in the air like a challenge. Maya studied the older woman's face, searching for any sign of manipulation or hidden agenda, but found only genuine emotion. "Elena's letter," Maya said carefully. "What else did it say?" Catherine reached into her purse and withdrew an envelope, aged but carefully preserved. "She asked me to give this to you if you ever came to Boston. I've been carrying it for 6 months, hoping." Maya accepted the letter with trembling fingers. Elena's handwriting was elegant but shaky, written during her final illness. Before she could open it, the penthouse door chimed again. Marcus checked the security monitor, and his expression darkened. "It's David and Jennifer. Together." "Let them in," Catherine said firmly. "It's time this family stopped operating in shadows and half-truths." Maya's stomach clenched, but she nodded. If she was going to reject their world, she might as well face all of them at once. David Chen entered first, his environmental lawyer's confidence barely masking his irritation at finding his mother there. He was taller than Marcus, with their father's broader build and a permanent expression of someone accustomed to being the smartest person in the room. Jennifer followed, her earlier calculation replaced by something approaching concern. "Mother, what are you doing here?" "What I should have done 30 years ago," Catherine replied, "having an honest conversation instead of making assumptions." David's sharp gaze moved between Maya and Isabella, conducting his own assessment. "So you're the Rodriguez woman who's been causing such interesting ripples in our family's finances." "David," Marcus's voice carried a warning. "It's fine," Maya said, standing straighter. "Yes, I'm Maya Rodriguez, and this is your niece, Isabella, though I'm beginning to think that's going to be the extent of our family connection." David raised an eyebrow. "Because you're planning to walk away from $27 million? "Because I'm planning to walk away from people who treat me like a criminal for existing." Jennifer stepped forward, her earlier hostility replaced by something more complex. "Maya, I owe you an apology. After you left my office, I called Elena's private investigator. The real story is different from what I assumed." Maya waited, Isabella heavy in her arms. "Elena didn't start planning this because she discovered you were pregnant. She started planning it because she was dying and wanted to make amends." Jennifer's voice softened. "She'd been tracking our family for years, watching Marcus struggle with the isolation that comes with wealth and power. When she learned he'd be speaking at that conference, she arranged for you to attend because she thought you two would be good for each other. But she couldn't have known I'd get pregnant." "No, but when she learned about Isabella, she saw it as confirmation that she'd been right about the connection between you." Jennifer glanced at her mother. "Elena's investigator said she cried when she saw the ultrasound photos you'd posted online. She called Isabella her second chance." David crossed his arms. "That still doesn't explain the stock purchases or the inheritance conditions." Catherine spoke up. "David, read the letter. Elena explains everything." Maya looked down at the unopened envelope in her hands. With everyone watching, she carefully tore it open and unfolded the pages inside. Elena's voice seemed to whisper, "You're from the paper," as Maya read aloud. "My dearest Maya, if you're reading this, then my final plan has worked and you've met Marcus Chen. I hope you can forgive an old woman's meddling, but I couldn't bear to leave this world without trying to give you the choice I never had." Maya paused, looking around the room at the Chen family. Even David's antagonistic expression had softened slightly. "I spent 30 years regretting my pride. I chose love over security and told myself it was noble. But the truth is, I was afraid that accepting help would diminish who I was." Afraid that money would change the purity of what your grandfather and I shared. Maya's voice cracked slightly as she continued. I want you to understand that there is no shame in accepting both love and security. The Chen family destroyed our friendship because I was too stubborn to let them help, and they were too proud to accept my refusal gracefully. Don't let our mistakes become your limitations. Catherine wiped tears from her eyes. Keep reading. Dear, the stock I purchased in Chen Industries isn't meant to control their company. It's meant to give Isabella a voice in her own future. The marriage condition isn't meant to trap you, but to ensure that if you choose Marcus, you choose him completely. Too many wealthy families are destroyed by prenups and contracts that plan for failure before celebrating love. Maya looked up at Marcus, seeing her own confusion reflected in his eyes. The final truth is this. I investigated Marcus Chen for 6 months before arranging your meeting. He is everything I hoped your grandfather could have been if circumstances had been different. Successful enough to provide security, kind enough to treasure you, and strong enough to stand beside you as an equal rather than above you as a benefactor. The letter continued in Eleanor's careful script. But Maya, if you choose to walk away from all of it, the money, the man, the family, I will love you for that choice too. Because the greatest gift I can give you is the freedom to choose your own path, knowing that Isabella will be provided for either way. Maya turned to the final page. There is one more secret, one I never told anyone except the priest who gave me last rites. Your grandfather didn't die in that factory accident. He died saving 3 other men when the machinery failed. He chose to be a hero rather than save himself, and that choice left you fatherless and me heartbroken, but proud. Maya's hands were shaking now. I'm telling you this because heroes come in many forms. Sometimes they wear work boots and die young. Sometimes they wear expensive suits and learn to love late. The question isn't what kind of hero you want to be with, but whether you're brave enough to be your own hero first. The room was silent, except for Isabella's soft breathing. Maya folded the letter carefully, her grandmother's words settling into her heart like seeds that might eventually grow into wisdom. She's still manipulating us, David said finally, but his voice lacked conviction. No, Maya said quietly. She's giving us information. What we do with it is up to us. Marcus stepped forward. Maya, after everything you've heard today, after meeting my family and seeing what our world is really like, what do you want? Maya looked around the room at these powerful people who'd spent the afternoon dissecting her life and motivations. Jennifer with her corporate armor and hidden vulnerability. David with his suspicion masking what might be protectiveness. Catherine with her elegant regret and genuine warmth. And Marcus, who'd somehow become the center of a storm he never asked. For I want to think, Maya said finally. I want to go back to the hotel, feed my daughter, and think about everything Elena wrote without 4 billionaires staring at me. Catherine smiled. That's exactly what Elena would have said. There's just one problem, Jennifer interjected. The inheritance conditions include a time limit. The marriage has to occur within 30 days of the will reading, or the stock transfers to charity. Maya's eyes flew to Marcus. 30 days? Elena's final manipulation, David muttered. Forcing a decision before anyone has time for second thoughts. Maya hefted Isabella higher in her arms, feeling the weight of generations of choices pressing down on her shoulders. Through the penthouse windows, Boston Harbor stretched toward the horizon, holding secrets that had finally been revealed, but solutions that remained frustratingly elusive. 29 days, she corrected, calculating quickly. We have 29 days to decide whether to get married or let Isabella lose her inheritance. Or, Marcus said quietly, 29 days to decide whether we're brave enough to find out what Elena saw in us that we can't see in ourselves. Outside, the first stars were beginning to appear over Boston, and Maya realized that her grandmother's final game was just beginning. 3 weeks later, Maya stood in the nursery she'd set up in the Boston townhouse she'd purchased with her inheritance, a compromise that surprised everyone, including herself. Isabella babbled happily in her crib, reaching for the mobile of stars and moons that Marcus had installed the day before. The past 21 days had been a whirlwind of lawyers, real estate agents, and family dinners that felt both foreign and familiar. Maya had used part of Elena's money to establish a scholarship fund for single mothers pursuing STEM degrees, a decision that had earned even David's grudging respect. But the biggest surprise had been how naturally she and Marcus had fallen into a rhythm of shared parenting and genuine partnership. They'd spent hours walking through Boston Common, Isabella bundled between them, talking about everything from quantum computing to childhood dreams. Marcus had shown her his lab at Chen Industries, where he was developing sustainable energy solutions, while Maya had shared her own ideas about AI applications in environmental modeling. 8 days remained until the inheritance deadline. Maya heard the front door open and Marcus's voice calling out that he'd brought dinner from the Italian place Isabella loved to watch them eat from. The domestic normalcy of it still caught her off guard sometimes. Perfect timing, Maya called back. She just went down for her nap. Marcus appeared in the doorway, still wearing his work clothes, but with his tie loosened and sleeves rolled up. Over the past weeks, Maya had learned to read his moods in the small details. Today's slight frown meant he'd been thinking about their situation again. "We need to talk," he said, confirming her suspicions. They settled in the living room with takeout containers spread across the coffee table Elena's money had bought. The evening light painted everything golden, and Maya could almost pretend they were just a normal family sharing dinner. "Jennifer called," Marcus began. "The final paperwork for the inheritance trust needs to be filed by next Friday. If we're going to do this, we need to decide now." Maya set down her fork. "And if we're not going to do this, then Isabella's trust fund becomes the largest charitable donation in Chen Industries' history, and we figure out custody arrangements like any other divorced parents who were never actually married." The clinical way he laid out their options made Maya's chest tight. "Is that what you want?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, studying the container of pasta in his lap. 3 weeks ago I would have said yes. Clean, simple, no complications. But Maya, these past weeks with you and Isabella, I keep thinking about what Elena wrote about heroes coming in different forms. "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe being a hero isn't about dramatic gestures or saving people from burning buildings. Maybe it's about choosing to build something good with someone who challenges you to be better than you thought you could be." Maya's heart raced, but she forced herself to stay rational. "Marcus, we still barely know each other. We're good at co-parenting and we enjoy each other's company, but marriage is different. Marriage is forever, or it's supposed to be." "It doesn't have to be forever to be real," Marcus said quietly. "Eleanor's condition is 2 years of marriage. We could try for 2 years, give Isabella the security of her inheritance. And if it doesn't work, we end things as friends who tried. That's the most unromantic proposal I've ever heard." Marcus laughed, the sound breaking some of the tension. "You're right. Let me try again." To Maya's shock, he slid off the couch and onto one knee beside the coffee table, pulling a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. "Maya Rodriguez, 3 weeks ago, you walked into my life and turned everything upside down. You've shown me what it means to put someone else first, what it feels like to have a family worth coming home to, and what Elena meant when she said some people are worth being brave for." His voice grew steadier. "I can't promise forever because I don't know what forever looks like, but I can promise to choose you and Isabella every day for as long as you'll let me. Will you marry me?" Maya stared at the ring, a simple solitaire that caught the evening light, and felt her carefully constructed walls crumbling. Marcus, I know it's not traditional. I know Elena's conditions make everything complicated. But Maya, forget. The money for a minute, if there was no inheritance, no stock options, no family pressure, would you want to try this with me? The question hung between them like a bridge Maya could either cross or walk away from. She thought about the past. In 3 weeks, the way Marcus sang off-key lullabies to Isabella when he thought Maya wasn't listening, the way he'd learned to make her coffee exactly right without asking, the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't paying attention, like she was something precious he was afraid to break. What if we're terrible at being married? Then, we'll be terrible together, but Maya, what if we're not? What if Elena was right and we're just too scared to see it? Isabella's cry echoed from the nursery upstairs, and Maya rose automatically to check on her. Marcus followed, and they found their daughter standing in her crib, bouncing excitedly at seeing them together. She knows, Marcus said softly. Look at her face. Isabella was beaming, her whole body wiggling with joy at seeing her parents. Maya lifted her daughter, and Isabella immediately reached for Marcus, wanting both of them close. She wants us to be a family, Maya whispered. So do I, Marcus replied. The question is, what do you want? Maya looked around the nursery she'd created, at the man who'd learned to change diapers and warm bottles without being asked, at the daughter who seemed to thrive having both parents present. She thought about Eleanor's letter, about heroes who chose love over fear, about the scholarship fund that would help other women pursue their dreams without having to choose between education and family. I want to be brave, Maya said finally. I want to choose both love and security, just like Elena hoped I would. I want to marry you, Marcus Chen, not because my grandmother manipulated us into it, but because you're right. We're good together, and Isabella deserves parents who are willing to try. Marcus's smile was brighter than the engagement ring as he kissed her, Isabella giggling between them. So that's a yes. That's a yes. But Marcus, yeah? If we're doing this, we're doing it right. I want a real wedding, not a courthouse signature. I want your family there, and Carmen flying in from Denver, and Isabella in a tiny flower girl dress. Done. Though you realize this means Jennifer will insist on helping plan everything, Maya groaned. Maybe the courthouse isn't such a bad idea after all. They were married 6 days later in the Boston Public Garden, with Isabella toddling between them in a white dress that made her look like an angel. Catherine Chen cried through the entire ceremony, while David surprised everyone by giving a toast about family being about choice rather than just blood. As Maya danced with her new husband under string lights strung between ancient oak trees, she felt Elena's presence like a blessing. Her grandmother had been right. Heroes came in many forms, and sometimes the bravest thing you could do was choose to build something beautiful with someone else. Thank you, Maya whispered to the stars above Boston Harbor, where her great-great-grandfather had once built his empire, and where she and Marcus were now building their own legacy. Isabella clapped from Catherine's arms, and Maya knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as a family. Complicated, imperfect, but real. Eleanor. Rodriguez Whitman's final game was complete, but Maya and Marcus's story was just beginning. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.